Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about the disappearance of Marvin Clark. And this is something a little different because this is the longest missing person. Now, I don't know if it's because, well, I guess he's the only one that's still missing from this long ago. I would think there'd be more people, but I don't know. But he went missing 99 years ago. So it was almost 100 years. Next year, it'll be 100 years that this man has been missing. And of course, he's presumed dead at this point. But Marvin Clark was born in 1852. He disappeared the day before Halloween in 1926. He disappeared while he was on his way to visit his daughter who lives in Portland, Oregon. And it's he has the distinction of being the oldest active missing person case. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. But I haven't made a video in a long time, as you guys know. But it's also a strange case because they say it's an active missing person case. So they're actively looking for this man who disappeared almost 100 years ago. See, that's where I don't get why he's the oldest case, because wouldn't there be other people they never found from that long ago? Well, regardless, on October 30th, 1926, Mr. Clark left his home in Tigard, Oregon, to drive to meet his daughter in downtown Portland. He never arrived to meet her, and none of his family heard from him that day. Some people say they saw him at the bus terminal in Portland where he was going to meet his daughter that day, and that he was dressed in a dark suit and dark pants. On November 9th, which was over a week later, his wife, Mary, she got some mail. It was a postcard from Bellingham, Washington, and it said it was sent from her husband. So some witnesses in Washington said they saw him in the area on November 2nd and 3rd. So basically, in 1986, there was a John Doe found in a wooded area that would have matched his description, but when they finally did DNA, they said it wasn't him. So I think for a while people thought that it was him, so his case kind of got like pushed off to the side. So apparently he was born in Iowa. His parents were from New York, and he moved to Oregon with his wife in 1910. At one time, he was the town marshal of Linton, which is a part of Portland. So he left around 1 p.m. to visit his daughter, and she was a resident and manager of a hotel in Portland. In the Morning Oregonian, they said that he went to Portland by stagecoach, but the following week they said he traveled by bus. You know, that's interesting because my first thought when I heard he was visiting his daughter, I had thought he just drove there. But they said, like, I guess back then they had stagecoaches still. But then they eventually said he came by bus. So that was the last sighting of him, was on the bus. Which, think about it. If they don't know if it's a stagecoach or a bus, how do they know anybody even saw him there? Because it doesn't say, like, they saw him on the stagecoach, they saw him on the bus. So anyway, according to the newspaper, Mr. Clark suffered from paralysis. He couldn't properly use his right arm. He walked with a limp, and that's why they thought the public would remember him. Initially, his daughter offered a $100 reward, and I'm sure back then that was a lot. So, on November 9th, they reported that his wife, Mary, received a disconnected postcard, supposedly written by her husband. It was postmarked in Bellingham, Washington, which is probably near Portland, Oregon, somewhere. And that's where people saw him, at 2 different hotels in the area. The letter indicated that the man's mind was wandering, as it was badly jumbled, despite the fact Mr. Clark is highly educated and he's graduated from 2 universities. So let's see, how old was he? When he went missing, he was 73. So he's getting up there in age, so it is the ages where people start getting dementia, Alzheimer's. So I could understand possibly him wandering off. In 2011, a medical examiner revisited his profile case. They found the 1986 information that they thought they had found him. So they decided to do DNA. They looked for a link, somebody that was related to Clark, and they found a great-great-granddaughter. They matched the DNA, and it was not, or they tried to match the DNA, and it was not a match. So they did keep her DNA in case at some time they do find remains again, and then they could match it against hers. So after hearing about this case, I personally feel like he wandered off. I think he initially was on the bus. He probably did reach his destination, and then he just wandered around, possibly got lost. Maybe he went into the woods. He just kept, like, maybe he was looking for his home. I don't know. But what's interesting is the letter indicated that his mind was wandering and badly jumbled, despite that he's highly educated. So if his wife made it a point to say, you know, this isn't like my husband because he's highly educated, then it would be a surprise that he would wander off of dementia or something. Because wouldn't she be like, oh, I was worried about him, you know, we don't know if he's in his right mind. But instead she was like surprised that the letter was jumbled. So I had a coworker, and her mother was at a nursing home, and she left the nursing home once when she was having like outdoor time, and they found her walking down a busy street. And when they talked to her, she said she was trying to go home. And of course, she wasn't even going the right direction. Okay, so I think her mom had, dementia. Also, my aunt, right before my aunt died, she was put into hospice care. And they asked if she wanted to live out her days, her last days, in the hospital in hospice or at home under hospice care. And she chose home. And during that time she was home, she would ask to go home. So she was at home wanting to go home. So I think a lot of times when people have dementia, Alzheimer's, something inside them, sends them searching for home. And maybe it's a childhood home. I don't know. But possibly he was looking for home. And he just kept walking and walking, and maybe made it all the way to a stranger's house, and somebody, wasn't so nice to him. Maybe he wandered into the woods, wandered into the water. I don't know how cold it gets in October there, but maybe he froze to death. There's just so many things that could happen with an elderly person. And that's just my first thought, is if the letter really came from him and it was like jumbled. Maybe he was trying to tell his wife something and he had a moment of clarity to write her a postcard. But what did it say, Like, we'd like to know what it said. And then eventually he'd run out of money and stuff. But in that case, I kind of feel like the family would have already known he had that problem. And that would be their guess, is that he wandered away. And he might not have been where he should have went to visit her in the first place. If he's got a limp, he's got partial paralysis, and if he has dementia, I don't think I would want my dad traveling to see me, or my husband going anywhere. But you would think back then they would have found him, unless they just didn't look right away. Now, another thing that could have happened is he got off on the wrong stop, and that confused him. And the postcard that he got, was it from a hotel? And he was seen at 2 hotels, and his daughter works at a hotel. So is he getting off on the wrong stop and then going to all these hotels looking for his daughter? That is sad. That could have happened. Maybe back then it's hard to get in touch with people. No cell phones. Now, surely they had, don't laugh at me, but did they have telephones back then in 1926? I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Because if they didn't have a telephone, then you couldn't even call your daughter or your wife. And then that would be really scary for him. I thought this was interesting because I never heard of this case before. But I don't know that we'll ever find his body. Unless it's just like somewhere, I feel like if it's in the woods, it'd really be hard to find it. And all these years have went by and they never found it. But I guess we'll never know. And he's definitely not still alive, I wouldn't think. He would be over 100 years old. He'd be like 170 years old. So, it's a sad story. Can you imagine this story being in your family, though? Like, I would think it would put you on a quest to find him. So, if you are related to this guy, I suggest you retrace his steps. You know? Sometimes I think there's some kind of connection. Like, I'm a Christian, so I believe people go to heaven or hell. But I feel there's a connection, a physical connection too. There's some kind of connection to our ancestors too. Not necessarily like maybe they come from heaven and, you know, talk to you or whatever, but you're part of them. So I feel like maybe his relative could retrace his steps and get a feeling of where he went that day. It's possible. But I'll see you guys on the next one.
You told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.